Hey guys, it's Liv here. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the new Paradox Pokemon confirmed for Scarlet and Violet. This does mean we're obviously going to be going to spoiler territory, but fear not, because I'm not showing any of the images of the new mons. So if you care about knowing at all what Pokemon are in this game, click off. If you don't care about seeing just at least the stats, the types, move pools, etc., and you only care about seeing the visuals for these new Pokemon, you should be fine here. I'm showing placeholder Pokemon instead. So if you guys do enjoy this type of content, you want to see more like it for Scarlet and Violet, leave a like and subscribe for more, and comment your thoughts on what you think will be the best Paradox Pokemon down below. So with that said, we do need to go over a couple key things going into this. Just for some baseline information. For one, the Paradox Pokemon, there are 14 of them, 7 past and 7 future. Basically, these Pokemon are treated as pseudo-legendaries, not like actual pseudo-legends, but they're kind of legendaries, in the sense that there's only one of them, and I think the best way to compare them is truthfully to Ultra Beasts. And their abilities, they have two. For any of the future Paradox Pokemon, they have an ability called Quark Drive, and the past ones have an ability called Photosynthesis. So basically, the Photosynthesis mons, because we're going over those first, these boost their most proficient stat. It's again, Beast Boost, but it's only if either they're Sun Up, or if they're holding an item called the Booster Energy, which seems to basically be the activator item for the Paradox abilities for Photosynthesis and Quark Drive, because Quark Drive is the same thing, but instead this one's for electric terrain. So this will be very interesting, because it does seem like this isn't just restricted to Koraidon and Miraidon, which I'll do a whole separate video going on those anyway. But these Pokemon basically, Koraidon and Miraidon get Sun for Koraidon, as well as boosting attack, and Miraidon is electric terrain and special attack. So basically, these Pokemon are meant to pair with the box arts this gen, but they could also still be used with Torkoal for Paradox past Pokemon and Pincurchin with Paradox future Pokemon respectively, as both of those are in the game as well. So this could lead to some very interesting options. So I'm going to go over these from an OU perspective, while still going over some VGC merit these might have, because obviously even before restricted formats, unless if these outright get banned as well from the non-restricted formats, we should be able to use these. Again, though, I'm using an Ultra Beast as a comparison here, and the Ultra Beasts were fine, so we're going to go with that. With that said though, let's start off with the past Pokemon, the first one being Great Tusk. So Great Tusk is the only one besides the Iron Treads that we saw actually in the initial trailer. In the very most recent one, actually, we saw a very, very small glimpse of it. But Great Tusk, it's a ground fighting type. It has 115 HP, 131 attack, 131 defense, 53 special attack, 53 speed F, and 87 speed. It has Photosynthesis, obviously. So my guess is this will mostly be used as a physical breaker, potentially on Trick Room, though truthfully you could also use this on just a not Trick Room team, because the 87 speed's not bad. Ground Fighting's an incredible offensive typing. This has some incredible moves, stuff like Headlong Rush, which has been adapted to a ground type close combat. So very strong in a Pokemon like this, obviously, considering it has basically 2 close combats on its moveset, which is really insane. Ground Fighting offensively is already an amazing typing. This gets knockoff for the Psychic Steel would otherwise wallet. You get Mega Horn as well for those. Rapid Spin to keep its a great support option here. You get stuff like Brick Break and Earthquake, as well as Tantrum and Bulldoze if you don't really want to necessarily drop your defenses, which could be useful. I could totally actually see this thing running common AV sets here and really not batting an eye, because this would actually make it an amazing Assault Vest Pokemon. This thing still gets some options though, such as Taunt if you want to take advantage of support, but I will say this is just off of the level up movesets. We're going to go over only level up movesets here. We don't have TM information yet, but I did want to talk about these Paradox Pokemon because at the very least, they're not Egg Move reliant, so it would be pretty disingenuous to go over the Egg Move as well as the TM list missing. However, we could go over some TMs that I do predict these Pokemon might have, because we do at the very least have a list of all of the TMs that are going to be coming back. So in this regard, oh no, that TM list got deleted. Let me see if there's an actual visual one, because it looks like there's a lot of things on this guide in particular. But if I can't actually find that, then we're just gonna go over as if TMs are not known yet. But I am kind of curious on, at the very least, if we can find a good TM list, because I know Smogon also had one on their site. At least like a visual one we can kind of go off of, which is better than nothing if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, even without the TM list, truthfully, I think that past Stompan will be in a very good position for this current metagame. I think, honestly, I can't really see this thing being below, like, I don't know. I think that maybe we'll see this in like the UU tier, maybe RU. It does look like we actually do have TMs, by the way. So there are a lot of TMs to go over. But as far as some TMs, you know, I'm actually not going to go over TMs because there's a lot to go over, and truthfully, it'd be way too much. But I think that Great Tusk will be in a pretty good spot as far as at least the U tier. I think the one thing that would, well, a couple things it would take to get it into OU would be stuff like Sword Stance and Stealth Rock when TMs come, which I know at least Sword Stance is a TM. Is Stealth Rock a TM? This would have been where having, yeah, it is a TM. Okay, so this is where we're having the paste, and I could just control F would be great, but I have to scroll through all these images, which is why I'm not really gonna go over them too heavily. But Stealth Rock and Sword Stance, if this thing gets those, it's pretty free in my opinion for an OU mon. This typing is way too good, and it has a really good speed stat too, to where after just a single rapid spin, this will be causing a ton of issues. Easy, strong Pokemon. I'm looking forward to using this in the new generation. Next up, we have Brute Bonnet. So this is the Mungus Paradox. It is a Grass Dark type. Some noteworthy moves this thing gets are stuff like Synthesis, Giga Terrain, Clear Smog, basically all the Mungus support, as well as Spore, of course. So welcome back, Spore Mungus. You still get some good doubles utility with stuff like Rage Powder. And as far as your offensive moves go, can't lie, it's a little bit to be desired. This Pokemon does get Sucker Punch and Giga Drain, which isn't terrible. This will probably run minus speed sets anyway. But I will say, though, that I kind of wish this thing got a bit better of a physical attack stat. Not a physical attack stat, a special attack stat, and it just swapped the offenses. I think if it did, this could be an amazing Pokemon, truthfully. Even with Sucker Punch, it could still have some niche Ks, and you could probably throw on like Dark Pulse or something for a TM. But because of that, I do think this actually will probably end up being a really low tier Pokemon in singles. It might be useful in doubles though. But I can't lie, I think regular Mungus will just be more useful. The fact that regular Mungus has Regenerator as an ability will be amazing for it. I think as well the typing for Grass Poison defensively will be a lot more useful. But to be fair, this still has some case uses that could be very good, and this would be great against opposing Psychic Terrain, for example, if that makes it return to relevancy. However, I will say that Psychic Terrain teams typically have been known to run Trick Room with Hatterene, so I don't know how useful this will even be for that matchup either. I think honestly this will probably be a pretty shit Paradox. It's probably going to be, in my opinion, one of the worst ones, but I don't think it'll be outright unusable. Truthfully, I mean, 111, 99, 99 is incredible bulk, and that 127 physical attack with Sucker Punch priority makes up for its shit speed, and its utility is good enough. I think this will probably sit like maybe like an NU ban tier. I don't think it even touches RU, to be honest. Truthfully, I could be wrong. It kind of depends. If this thing were to maybe get stuff like Seed Bomb, for example, which is pretty likely. But it would probably also need maybe like Knockoff, for example, if I had to guess, which I don't really think it's going to get Knockoff. I mean, there are Pokemon here that outright get it through level up, and this doesn't really seem like a knockoff type of Pokemon. Plus, if I remember correctly, I don't even think Knockoff was on the TM list, so I don't really think it's that likely. If it is a TM, then maybe some other stuff that might be useful, maybe Toxic Spikes just to pay homage to the fact that it used to be a poison type, but I don't really think that's likely either. I don't know, I think this will be a Pokemon that we're really gonna have to see what coverage it gets. I'm not super hopeful on it though, but that's kind of going to be typical actually of a lot of the past Paradox Pokemon in my personal opinion. A lot of them kind of ended up being disappointments. Next up though, we do have Sandy Shocks, which is a ground electric type. This thing gets 85 HP, 81 attack, 97 defense, 121 special attack, 85 speed def, and 101 speed. It gets some coverage it gets some stab options like Discharge, Earth Power, and that's really it. You get Miracle, which is kind of useful. You get Thunder Wave, Bulldoze. Bulldoze mostly just to drop speed, as well as potentially be useful with Pop Weakness Policy and VGC. This mon will probably be one of the worst Paradoxes in my opinion, offensively and defensively speaking. Its bulk's not that great. It doesn't seem to get any recovery as of right now. Its coverage is really terrible. I will say that Electric Ground is a pretty good typing offensively, considering the fact that Ground helps a lot against opposing Electrics. I kind of wish this thing got maybe something like, I don't know honestly what it would get. Maybe it could get something like, I don't know, just really any coverage. Like, I know I'm being very vague here. Maybe you could make a case maybe for Bug Buzz, I guess, or just some sort of other sound move that could maybe be useful coverage wise. Just the point being is this thing kind of sucks. It only gets a couple useful moves. It doesn't get stuff like Stealth Rocks, which maybe TM, but again, some other Pokemon here got 3 level up. I'm not exactly hopeful. This thing's move pool is mostly just shit moves. We look at some other moves I didn't list here. It gets stuff like Metal Sound, Spark. it's not going to be great. I did only list noteworthy moves here. If there weren't enough that I felt like would be usable on this Pokemon, I didn't put them on here. So I think this will probably be like an NU, maybe even PU Pokemon, to be honest. I think NU is probably the lowest it will go, truthfully, because of the fact that you could add the booster energy. And this is a Pokemon that stat-wise, to be fair, wouldn't insanely need to have an item. I think it could totally get by just trying to pop its ability and go for stat boost and try and boost speed that way on a spec set. And I think it's probably the best it gets, in my personal opinion. Still going to probably be very low tier. Maybe it treads to an NU ban. The typing, to be fair, offensively is very good, and electric with discharge as well as earth power with the ground could be decent. I think it needs Volt Switch. If it gets Volt Switch, I could actually see this being RU, but for now, we'll pretend it's going to be NU. Next up, we have Screentail. So Screentail actually is going to be decent. This is a very psychic type. It gets stuff like Psychic Fangs, Player Off, and Crunch for physical. Both its offenses are decent with 65. I kind of hope it gets Moonblast or Psychic through TMs, which could be pretty likely. I forget if Moonblast is even a TM, but I'm pretty sure at least Dazzling Gleam is, which would be something, if nothing else. This thing gets pretty good bulk too, with 115 HP, 99 defense, and 115 SPDF. Honestly, I think this will be a solid Pokemon. I think that it does need a couple things, to be fair. I'm kind of hoping for moves such as maybe Teleport or U-Turn, Baton Pass, some sort of momentum basically that this thing could get. This could honestly be a really terrifying option. Now again, to be fair, I don't really have an easy way to check through for what moves are going to be there, but I mean, I could definitely see at least U-Turn, if nothing else, being an actual TM. This Pokemon does, I will say, if you're looking at the design, it looks very funny when you see it for the first time in game. It's a really funny Pokemon. But yeah, no, I think this will be a solid, like, maybe EU Pokemon, to be honest. Wish plus Disable, as well as the really good speed stat, could honestly be really crippling. I'm kind of hoping this gets Taunt. I think Taunt will be a huge saver on this. This could truthfully, in my eyes, be anywhere from like UU tier to like the PU tier. And it kind of depends on coverage. Oh, Baton Pass is a TM. Okay, so Baton Pass could be really good on this actually, but that's not going to make a huge difference in Smogon at least, so fuck Smogon, etc, etc. But truthfully, I do think this could honestly have a case for maybe being like a UU-mon. It needs some really hyper-specific TMs though. I think that it's not entirely doomed though. But I think really it's probably going to end up in the RU tier, if I'm going to be honest. Stats are still really decent. It's a really good support piece. It needs a lot going for it. Stuff like Encore, Taunt, Baton Pass, probably U-Turn as well for Smogon standards. Just other moves that could really play into the fact that this is a really decent typing and a really bulky Pokemon. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Toxic would have been huge, but sadly, I don't think a Toxic's going to be on this. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a TM again. Next up is Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane's going to be broken. This one, objectively, is probably going to be one of, if not the best past Paradox Pokemon, but I do think there's one that's going to be better. This is the Mischievous Paradox. It's a Ghost Fairy typing with 55 in its physical stats with HP, as well as 135 in its special stats plus speed. This thing gets Memento for utility, as well as Perish Song and Pain Split, and Mean Look too, which could be pretty useful actually, especially if this gets Calm Mind or Nasty Plot. You could potentially go for a Trap Set and basically be a Pseudo Mega Gengar, which could be kind of cool. As far as other utility you get stuff like Wish. For coverage, you get stuff like Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Mystical Fire, Psyshock, Power Gem. I think this will be an easy OU Pokemon, truthfully. I can't see this thing not being OU, and I think you could even make a case for at least a Suspect test down the line. I will say, I don't think a Suspect test comes right away though, but I do think that this will probably end up getting one maybe a couple months in. I think there's a couple more pressing Pokemon though, personally. But yeah, this is probably one of the best past Paradox Pokemon we'll have, in my opinion. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we have Slither Wing. So Slither Wing is it's one of two Volcarona forms, but this one looks a lot more like Larvesta. So for sake of variety in the imagery, I put up Larvesta on this screenshot. This is a bug fighting type with Photosynthesis, of course. We have 85 HP, 135 attack, 79 defense, 85 special attack, 105 def, and 81 speed. This gets some options like Bug Bite, Leech Life. You get, sadly, this thing's best option for fighting so far seems to be Superpower, which I wouldn't entirely say is bad. I just think that, you know, when we're going through and when we're going with a bulk up set on a rather average speed Pokemon, I think it's a little bit left to be desired. It's not a terrible Pokemon. I think, truthfully, this is going to need some way to boost its speed, I think, in the long term to actually be useful. But I will say that First Impression Priority is pretty good. You could probably even make a Bandit set work on this, truthfully, with First Impression, Leech Life, Superpower, and Dual Wing Beat, and maybe make that work. But I think that if nothing else, this will be kind of an average Pokemon, probably sitting in the RU tier in my opinion. It's not bad by any means. I think that the biggest competition, truthfully, comes to the fact that Pokemon like Heracross, I think Heracross is back in the game, but even still, just a lot of other Guts fighting types that have a more immediate breaking presence. But I will say, to be fair, 135 attack is nothing to sleep on, and the speed's good enough too, to where I think this will be decent, especially with the +2 priority hit that could fire off and then immediately switch out. So while I don't think this will take advantage of the ability to get ton unless it's against a really slow team, it could be pretty decent overall on this Pokemon in my opinion. I think that Slither Wing definitely won't be a bad Pokemon though. Truthfully, I think the typing is too good offensively, especially with the fact that it does get first impression. That's honestly really terrifying in my personal opinion. I kind of hope it gets like knockoff or victory dance later on, but I wouldn't entirely count on it, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely either. It's going to be interesting to see in my opinion. But I think his Pokemon has potential. I'm looking forward to seeing how good it is. I think, truthfully, this will have a lot better usage in VGC, actually. This one will be incredible in VGC. You could throw this on a Sun team, and you could utilize this to take advantage of opposing Chlorophyll Pokemon, because you just barely outpace Pokemon like Venusaur. Really, the only ones that wouldn't outpace you would be the Pokemon that can't really touch you, like Stupid Lilligant, which, at the very least, even if it can touch you with Weather Ball, why would it run Weather Ball? Because it's... Well, actually, let's look up Lilligant real quick. Solely so I don't get so I don't age really badly when I'm looking through this at the very least, if nothing else. But I will say that I do think, if nothing else, yeah, this Pokemon looks like it doesn't really get anything that would be super good for you. So I actually have a lot of faith personally that we'll be pretty fine as far as the very least this Pokemon walling out Lilligant goes. I can't really see any actual Chlorophyll Pokemon that would be in the game that would legitimately give this thing an actual issue personally. But I think this could be really good on Tailwind specifically for that reason, or even just as a bulky Sun check in general. But we'll have to see what happens. I think this will be decent though for sure, and a very interesting one to follow. Next up we have Roaring Moon. This is probably one of the quickest ones to Ubers in my opinion. I think there's one that will be there immediately, and this one might get a suspect, solely dependent on if it gets coverage for fairies through TMs, because that's the one thing it didn't get coverage for. But Roaring Moon, a Dragon Dark typing, this is 105 HP, 139 attack, 71 defense, 55 special attack, 101 Spadef, and 119 speed. This will honestly be a terrifying Pokemon. It gets Dragon Dance and Roost, as well as some pretty good offensive options. I threw in Flamethrower here solely dependent on, I guess, if let's say this wasn't to be banned and this happens to be around until Ferrothorn gets back in the game, Flamethrower will be useful for that, but also potentially for Scizor matchups. It could be pretty useful if Scizor runs more of like a Fizdef leading set, but truthfully, Dragon Dance plus Crunch and Dragon Claw will be terrifying enough. You get some good coverage with stuff like Zen, Headbutt, and Fly, which will be useful for fighting types that might try and fight you. And it's a good neutral option for fairies if nothing else, because you do at the very least have Dragon Claw and Night Slash that otherwise won't do a ton. I will say, one thing I think will happen is I think that at the very least, until this thing gets banned to Ubers, Throat Chop will be the primary attack of choice. And you might be asking why, and I think it's because of the fact that currently speaking, at least as far as defensive fairies go, Sylveon would be the best check to this. At least barring Numons, which I have not actually looked into the stats for, but Sylveon will be one of the best checks to this defensively speaking, and honestly, I think a Throat Chop just to wall it out and to give it a ton of issues, and to truly force it to run Moonblast just for Paradox Ments will be fucking hysterical. So I think it will actually do that early meta, at least until it gets banned, which I give it a week. Give it a week tops. I do think there's one other Pokemon in this list that will get immediately banned, but stay tuned to the end of the video to find that one out. Anyway, of the past Paradox Pokemon, this is the best one, and it's not just because of the fact that this one has 20 base BST higher. I think it just genuinely has a much better composition. Even if you made its attack down to 119 or its speed down to 99, this would probably be the best one here in my opinion. Well, actually, if you drop the speed to 99, I will say, I think that Mischievous would give it a run for its money, but I think that, yeah, truthfully, this toolkit is fucking amazing. This or Mischievous, I think, get the cake for best past form in my personal eyes, but I lean slightly more to this one. Moving on to our future Pokemon, though, we do have Iron Treads, the Ground Steel Donphan. This is Quark Drive, so we start to get into the ones that take advantage of Electric Terrain instead. And honestly, I think that this one takes advantage of Electric Terrain a lot better. Unlike past Donphan, I think this one actually really benefits from its typing in this regard, because it's now at immunity to Electric Terrain. So you don't even have to worry about Electric types going for stuff like Rising Voltage if Pokemon do get this in the game. I haven't really looked into that. I know that some of these moves just outright have no actual options, and yeah, it doesn't look like Rising Voltage is on any Pokemon right now, as of level ups at least. So at the very least, that's pretty decent if nothing else going for it. But even still, just making sure that you're not actually weak to Pokemon that would otherwise take advantage of your own terrain, in my opinion, is pretty useful. On top of this as well, Iron Tread gets some stuff like Bulldoze, Tantrum, Earthquake, etc. Sadly, this does not look to get Headlong Rush, but I'm not too concerned with it. You still get some options like Iron Head and Heavy Slam, of course, for your Steel Stab. Wild Charge, which could be pretty useful on this actually, because not only is Wild Charge a great option for waters that would otherwise try and wall yourself, or at the very least pressure you offensively, but it's also great to take advantage of Electric Terrain, which I think a lot of people will kind of overlook when going into this Pokemon. Being able to take advantage of the Electric Terrain boost with Iron Treads, as well as going for the Wild Charge and just breaking opposing waters for you, will be really amazing for this. I think this will be an honestly really good OU Pokemon. I think that even if you were to not pair this with Pincurchin, I think you could just throw on the boost charge or whatever the item is. I've already forgot. And honestly take advantage of a really good speed boosting set with this and go with specifically just a jolly speed boosting set, and I think you can go ham. Also, Adamant would be pretty decent depending on how slow the metagame skews, because 1 of 6 speed is still pretty decent, especially if you were to maybe pair this with like a web setter. I could totally see this thing being a solid OU presence though, in my opinion, especially because this one, oh no, this one didn't get Stealth Rocks to level up. Did it not? I swear I thought Iron Treads got it. I actually do have to double check this because I legitimately thought that Iron Treads got Stealth Rocks level up. You know what? Nope. Actually, that's a different Pokemon on this list. We'll get into that one in a bit. But if nothing else, I think Iron Treads will be decent. This will be a really strong OU Pokemon. At worst, maybe like a UUBL in my opinion. The speed and typing alone is way too good in my personal opinion. But we'll have to see. Next up though, we do have Iron Moth. Now I will say, I was fully ready when I saw that this could run Boost Charge to fully say, let's ban it. But if this thing actually gets it doesn't really get a good way to set up. This thing gets Calm Mind. I think this will be a pretty quick ban personally. The ground weakness is really the biggest issue for it. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to get Quiver Dance, which will be amazing in terms of balancing for this if nothing else. And I purely mention that because it still gets Bug Buzz as a tribute to its previous bug typing for base Volcarona. So I don't think that thinking this thing might have gotten Quiver Dance is exactly too far out of the realm of possibility, but thankfully it doesn't get it. As far as coverage you get though, you get some pretty decent options. Stuff like Hurricane, for example, a really strong flying option, could help, especially if you were to throw this on a rain team, because you'd have, whether in or out of rain, really strong options for handling it. Though truthfully, Sludge Wave will probably be the best way for this. You get Sludge Wave, Overheat, and Fire Dance as really strong stab options. Discharge will be amazing for water type matchups. And again, Bug Buzz will just be a good option. This could help a lot with psychic types as well that might try and oppose you. I think this will be a decent mon. I can't imagine it not being at least UU, but I'm kind of leaning OU personally with some sort of timid set. I could even see this thing running not a max special attack stat just to boost speed, truthfully, and I could totally see that being a thing. The stats alone are bulky enough to where you could maybe make this thing a bulky Pokemon and just run like 3 attacks plus Morning Sun with literally stabs and discharge, in my opinion. And I think it'll at least be like a UU Pokemon, personally. With that said though, Iron Hands. Iron Hands will be awesome. This will be a really cool like UU Pokemon, I think, personally. The typing with Electric Fighting is absolutely monstrous. I will say though, I think this will be just fucking amazing in VGC. This will be an easy standout Trick Room pick in my opinion, with Fake Out being a great option to help proc Trick Room easier, as well as you get some good offensive options with Thunder Punch, Close Combat, Belly Drum as well. Even with a Follow Me user, you could potentially pair this and make Iron Hands a monster offensively. I will say, I kind of wish this had a little bit more variety in Quark Drive, but it's not going to be a huge deal. I think truthfully, maybe this just makes it less dependent on it, but I don't know. I think in singles, this will be an amazing Quark Drive user. Doubles, I think again, Belly Jump with Redirection will probably be the play in a lot of cases for at least certain Trick Room teams. So I don't really think it'll even care about Quark Drive personally, because you probably can't really boost defense enough. Maybe you can. I don't really see it happening. But regardless though, this will be an amazing Pokemon. I think it'll be really top tier in Trick Room on VGC. For singles, probably like UU RU range, I think it's a little too slow personally for my liking to be a really noteworthy UU Pokemon. But the typing's really good, and I wouldn't entirely be shocked if it was. It's an electric type that, well, it's a fighting type that can have electric as a stab to take advantage of flyings. The typing alone, sadly, this mon doesn't get knockoff. If it did, I think I'd be pretty confident in saying this is a UU mon. And I solely say this because of the fact that Hariyama gets this through level up for base Hariyama. This Pokemon does not, but the stabs alone are honestly pretty decent. It even gets coverage for fairies with Heavy Slam. I'm pretty ready for this Pokemon to honestly be a solid UU threat. Also, I guess the stab with Electric Terrain would benefit a lot from being an actual terrain user, which is weird because I think this is the Pokemon that, of all the future Paradoxes, probably needs the ability the least, but it's going to be the one that will probably most likely be ran in tandem with it, if that makes sense. At least in doubles. We'll have to see. Going to be still pretty interesting in my opinion. Next up is Iron Juggalus. This will be the worst future form in my opinion. At least as far as level up goes, this will be the worst one. With TMs, I think this will fix a lot of its issues, to be fair. Hydra gets a ton of good TMs in base form, and I can't really see it losing stuff like Flamethrower, Flash Cannon, etc. But if nothing else, the level up moveset leaves a lot to be desired. Snarl's pretty decent for doubles. You get Dark Pulse and Air Slash just good stabs. Dragon Pulse is an homage to the Dragon typing previously, and Knockoff is pretty decent for utility. I kind of wish this thing got U-turn through level up, but U-turn I'm not ruling out entirely yet. It's a TM. You get stuff like Flamethrower potentially through TM. I think this will be depending on the TMs that this gets, this will probably go anywhere from OU to NU, truthfully. I don't think it'll be ban worthy, but I think it kind of needs some sort of recovery move. Taunt, U-turn, Flamethrower, Flash Cannon. If it gets those, I think this will be a solid OU-mon, or even 4 of those. I think it can give up on Roost, truthfully. I think it needs the other 4, though, or at the very bare minimum. Oh, also, I guess it's setup. It needs setup, too, but I guess to be fair, you could always throw this on one of those Pinkerton teams with heavy-duty boots and at least try and boost your stats that way, and I think that'll be good enough, if nothing else, as far as lacking a setup option goes. It does get workup technically, but I would truthfully love for this thing to get Nasty Plot like Base Hydreigon does. Otherwise, I don't know why you'd run Base Hydreigon, well, why you wouldn't run Base Hydreigon over this, personally, despite the better speed. I think that it would just have a lot better coverage, plus Nasty Plot is a more reliable way to set up, but we'll have to see. Next up, though, we do have Iron Thorns. This is the Paradox Mon I mentioned that gets Stealth Rocks. Paradox T-Tar, its stats are amazing. 100 HP, 134 attack, 110 defense, 70 special attack, 84 SPDF, and 72 speed. It's still the rock typing, so it still gets the speed on the SPDF boost with Sand. Quark Drive will still be pretty decent in this because you could take advantage of not only its wide variety in utility options for stats. I think it'll probably end up typically boosting PhysDef, but we'll have to see. This will be a pretty decent bulky option, truthfully. I could totally see this on maybe Tailwind in VGC, especially with Rock Slide. This could be a really good option on Tailwind teams. The coverage is amazing on this Pokemon, by the way, just off of level up alone, and it's probably gonna get some options like Crunch as well once the TM movesets come out. Honestly, I think that in singles this will probably be pretty shit. Well, not pretty shit. I think this will be like UU. Solid UU-mon, I think. Maybe RU. The typing with a 4x ground weakness is kind of terrible, and the speed's a little bit average, especially when T-Tar actually set its own Sand for SPDF boost. So wouldn't be able to do that. So I think UU, RU probably makes sense. The typing, the stat line is too good, and I think truthfully this will pair with Pinkerton to where, unless they ban like Electric Surge or something, this Pokemon will probably end up being a solid UU, RU-mon. If Electric Surge gets banned, I could totally see this thing actually getting PU. But we'll have to see. This will be interesting. I think it'll be great in VGC though, but we'll have to see as far as singles goes. Next up, oh oops, I forgot to add in the rest of the slides. Give me 1 second to do so. But we do have a couple more Pokemon left. Reminder, if you're enjoying, leave a like and comment your thoughts on what you think will be the best Mon. As far as Paradox go down below, while I skim through the slides really quick, like to get back to the well, actually this is your refresher to comment which one you've enjoyed so far the most down below. But with that said though, we do have our second to last Pokemon being Iron Bundle, the Delibird Paradox. It's a nice water type, and honestly I think this one will be decent. Throw heavy duty boots on this and it's pretty good. 136 speed is fucking amazing, and 124 special attack to boot. I could totally see this thing running Modest sets, truthfully. The speed, as far as I'm aware, wouldn't have been that useful with Timid. But Modest sets could be great because you could boost the special attack while being outpacing a lot of the metagame. Snowscape, I wanted to mention it. I don't think it'll be typically clicked on Iron Bundle, at least in singles, but this does end up basically giving a new version of Hail that boosts PhysDef for Ice types. Could be pretty decent with Aurora Veil, and it's the sole reason I mentioned it. I could see this thing, if nothing else, maybe running it with Light Clay in doubles and pairing itself with Satitan and being pretty decent. Overall though, I think this will be a decent Mon. I think honestly this is a UU OU Mon for sure. The typing plus stats alone are decent enough, and the fact it gets Freeze Dry plus Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, honestly it gets enough. This also gets Flip Turn for momentum, so truthfully I could just see it running those top 4 moves in OU and being pretty decent. For doubles though, having stuff like Helping Hand and Aurora Veil for utility, I could totally see this thing running Snowscape, Helping Hand, Aurora Veil, and then like Freeze Dry or Flip Turn or something, and honestly being a decent support pick. Albeit much more niche to be fair, but decent enough. Its speed stat is really what carries it here, especially with like a Focus Dash, could be kind of helpful. But we do have one more Pokemon, and this is, in my opinion, the most broken Paradox Pokemon, past, present, future, whatever. I don't fucking care. The most broken one by a good mile. I would argue it's more broken than any other Pokemon that I've at least looked into in this game. But I will say, to be fair, I've not looked at the Legends move pools yet for the box arts. But their stats, at the very least, I would argue this is more broken, and we'll get into why. But this is Iron Valiant. I put both of these Pokemon on the screen because it's definitely a fusion of Gallade and Gardevoir. If you see it design-wise, it's definitely a fusion of both. But yeah, we have next up Iron Valiant. This is going to be broken. 130 attack, 120 special attack, and 116 speed. You could truthfully tailor this to be the most offensive nightmare you've ever seen in the game, going for speed boost, special attack boost, or attack boost, and being an absolute menace doing so. The typing with Fairy Fighting is incredible. We already see this thing getting incredible physical options with Knockoff, Spirit Break, Close Combat, Leaf Blade, Psychic Cut, and I think I said Close Combat, but Shadow Sneak. All those moves already are incredible, especially when this thing gets an option to basically just Moxie boost its speed or physical attack stat. Incredible. This will be a very easy Pokemon to pick off KOs with, in my opinion. It's going to be extremely demanding to prep around, especially because of the fact there aren't a lot of good steals, and also a lot of steals are weak to fighting anyway. So for Fairy type checking, you're basically looking at Poisons, which this thing gets Psycho Cut for anyway. As far as for the fighting type checking, you're looking at Psychic types, which it gets Knockoff for. You're looking at Fairy types, which this thing, I guess, can hit neutrally with a lot of its options. I don't fucking know. I think this will be a very clear-cut day one suspect test. I think this is the first Paradox to go in for Mogu. I would genuinely be shocked if it isn't. I wouldn't even blame Smogon for outright banning it pre-testing. Truthfully, I would not. This will be an absolute monster. I would, truthfully, if any Pokemon was to get banned before Terrestrial gets banned, I think it's this one or Pull. I can't really see any others getting banned earlier than that, but let me know your guys' thoughts. What do you think was going to be the most broken terrestrial Pokemon? And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like in the video and subscribe. Shout out to our channel members, of course, being Josh, aka Ultra Player, Mia, and Zeke0. Your guys' support is immensely appreciated. And if you want to become a channel member today, only a couple dollars a month, and the link to that is down below as well. With that said, Twitter and Discord down below as well for updates on future content, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video, where I think I'm going to go over, I don't know what I'll go over specifically, but we'll go over something. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, guys.